Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Kovacs here. Mishnah Yomi is in chapter 3 of Kidushin, Mishnah 12 and 13. Today we're turning to the topic of yichus, of Jewish genealogy, of what is the status of the offspring from certain types of marriages. Now we touched upon this way back in Yevamot, about the widow marrying the Kohen Gadol or the divorcee marrying the Kohen and what happens to the children of such a marriage and different degrees of prohibitions that the Torah has for various kinds of marriages. So let's see what happens in chapter 3, Mishnah 12. Kol makom sheyesh Kidushin, any time where marriage is possible, ve'ein aveira, and there's no transgression. There's nothing wrong with this marriage, a normal Jewish marriage. Havlad holech achar zachar. The child gets the status, the tribal status of the father. So what are we talking about here? Kohenet, Leviah, Yisraelit. We're talking about the daughter of a Kohen, the daughter of Mr. Levi, or the daughter of just a regular Jewish girl, Shenisu, the Kohen. And the girl goes, she marries a Kohen, or a Levi, or Yisrael, or Yisrael. So the child from these normal, Baruch Hashem, Mazel Tov, these wonderful, normal Jewish unions, he's a Kohen or he's a Levi or Yisrael, depending on the father. Now the Mishnah contrasts here, V'kol makom sheyesh Kidushin ve'yesh aveira, where a marriage is possible, but it's a marriage in sin. It's a marriage the Torah says, don't do that. Havlad holech achar hapagum. The child goes after the problematic partner in the marriage. Ve'eza, so what's an example? A widow marrying the high priest, or a divorcee, or a chalutze. Remember, chalutza is what's done instead of yibum if the widow doesn't want to marry one of the brothers and wants to be free to marry someone else. It's usually lumped in with divorce, with a grusha, the kohen hedyot, and those are both not allowed to a regular kohen. So in those cases, she becomes a halala, a woman who's unfit, who has an unfit marriage to a kohen. So she's unfit to kahuna, and the child becomes a halal. Now he's a Kohen, his name is Mr. Cohen, but he's a halal. He can't serve in the Beis Hamikdash. He doesn't have certain privileges of a regular Kohen miyuchas, a genealogically pure Kohen. The Mishnah adds more similar cases, or mamzeret, a female mamzer, a legitimate girl, a natina, or a natin. Now a natin was from the Givonim, this tribe of Canaanite people who tricked Moshe or tricked later Yehoshua. Also a tribe did this and pretended to be from far away. So they were accepted into the Jewish people, but they really were under false pretenses. They shouldn't have been. And later on, David HaMelech said they really can't intermarry as a result of their, their retribution against the children of Shaul, their desire for revenge. It wasn't the normal Jewish Rahmanis that they had. So these people aren't allowed to marry into the normal Jewish population. Or Bat Yisrael a mamzer natin, or vice versa. A normal Jewish girl wants to marry a mamzer or a natin. Now, one of the partners is a part of the kahal, a part of the normal average congregation. The other one has a genealogical blemish, a genealogical issue. So the children from the marriage, they all go after the problematic genealogy. Now, the Mishnah turns to cases where really there's no marriage. There's some sort of activity here that's really problematic. There's no marriage possible. Kol mi she'ein lo olav Kidushin, aval yesha alacherim Kidushin, any time where this relationship, there wouldn't be Kidushin between this man and the woman, but they would technically be able to marry someone else, havlad mamzer. The children are considered mamzerim, illegitimate. For example, a brother and a sister, God forbid, but technically, they can't get married. Even if he gives her a ring and they go to Vegas and have a party, they're not married. They're living in sin, and the offspring are mamzerim. These are the arayot that are punishable by karet, spiritual excision, or mita, or by death by the hands of the court. The previous relationships, that's when it's a lav. That's when the Torah says, don't do this. But if the Torah says, don't do this, and you get karet, or you get cut off, or you get killed, that's what we're talking about here. Those marriages don't even get off the ground. They're not a marriage, even if they're pretending, and the children are, God forbid, mamzerim. The eizazo is a bol alachat mikol arayot shevatorah. Who are these? These are the arayot, the iser erva, the relatives that are forbidden to marry in the Torah. And finally, the Mishnah adds, "V'kol mi she'ein lo alav v'lo alacherim Kidushin." Anyone where there's no marriage possible between this man and this woman, and they also can't marry somebody else, havlad kamota. The children go after the mother. The Eza, so what are we talking about? Ze vlod shivcha v'nochrit. This is the child of a shivcha Canaanite, a servant who has been acquired from the non-Jewish nations, and of course they put her in the mikveh. She has to follow some mitzvot. She's quasi-Jewish until she's freed. She's fully Jewish, but at the moment when she's a shivcha, she's not Jewish. She can't marry a Jewish man. So there's no Kidushin available to her. So if she would live with a Jewish man, the children would be like her. They'd be a shivcha Kananit or an Eved Kanani. V'nochrit, and the same with a non-Jewish woman. If a Jewish man, quote-unquote, marries a non-Jewish woman, the children do not have a Jewish status. And here the Bartanura brings the explanation from the Gemara, and it's based on psukim in Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 7, Ki yasur et bincha me'acharai. He will, lead astray your children. Now what's going on here is the Torah is telling parents not to let their children marry non-Jewish people, and then it follows up by saying, if you let your daughter marry a non-Jewish man, he will alienate your grandchildren from the faith, meaning your grandchildren still have a Jewish status, so there's still an additional problem that the grandchildren are going to be alienated from Yiddishkeit. But the Bartanura notes it doesn't say ki tasur, that she, a non-Jewish mother, will alienate the grandchildren because those grandchildren are born in an alienated status. Now, Miyat Hashem, maybe they could be educated, they can convert, there are cases where this has happened, but halachically their status right now is they're not Jewish. On to Mishnah 13, this is really wild. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, Rabbi Tarfon says, Yecholin mamzerim litaher. A mamzer, an illegitimate person who, they cannot intermarry regular Cohen, Levi, Yisrael. They'd have to marry, Natinim, Givonim, other mamzerim. They're kind of, they can marry Avodim who've been freed. They kind of have a limited marital prospect. So he says they could be mitaher, like purified. Ketzad, how? Mamzer shenasa shivcha. A male mamzer marries a shivcha Kananit. Now, really, he's not supposed to do that, but there are situations where a Jewish man, we've discussed, is sold because he stole something and he cannot pay back. So basically the rights to his labor are on sale to pay back his debt, and an Eved Ivri in that situation is allowed to quote-unquote marry, but not really marry, a Shivcha Kananit. So what happens? Havlod Eved. The Vlad will be an Eved Kanani, like the mother, as we just explained in Mishnah 12. The child from this relationship would be like the mother, because there's not really a Kidushin here until she's freed. Shichuro, so then the father could free this child, and now he's going to be, with emancipation, he'll be fully Jewish. Nimsa haben ben Churin. His son will be a free Jewish man without the taint of mamzer in his genealogy. Rabbi Eliezer Omer disagrees. He says, Hareze Eved mamzer. He says, no, when he's born, he's both an Eved Kanani and also a mamzer. So when he's freed, he loses his Evedkeit, but he still has a mamzer issue. The Bartanura points out halacha is actually like Rabbi Tarfon, so yes, theoretically, the mamzerim could be purified. And tomorrow we're going to start chapter 4 and have more discussions of yichus, of Jewish genealogy, tisku the mitzvot.